Welcome to the Creato Connection, where we broadcast programs of interest to leaders around the world who have made a commitment to operational excellence. You can find our broadcast schedule and enroll in any topic at www.creato.com/events. Producing these programs reflects our commitment to the industry, and we also hope they will introduce us to opportunities to work with leaders like you. Getting the right people on the bus. Please note that this was a previously recorded event. We will start today with a brief overview of Creato Performance Solutions, followed by our featured program. The next voice you will hear is from CEO of Creato Performance Solutions, Mr. Ian Lazarus.
Hello everybody, this is Ian Lazarus and thank you for joining us today and welcome to Getting the Right People on the Bus. I'd like to share just a little bit of information about Creato before we get started. We're celebrating our 20-year anniversary this year. From the very beginning, we believe that leaders should have all the tools they need to excel in their mission. We're proud of our multiple channel partners. You may recognize some of their logos there off to the right, and we do an enormous amount of publishing. In fact, you'll find a resource-rich site at www.creato.com and would encourage you to stop there after today's program. You'll find various resources that you can use and download to begin the process of educating internally in your organization. We're proud of the fact that we've supported 3 Baldrige Award-winning organizations. In the case of each of those organizations, their chief quality officer indicated they could not have earned that prestigious recognition without our help. Today's program will cover 3 topics. We'll start with the 3 secrets to sustainable improvement capability, getting the right people on the bus is inherent in achieving sustainability. The role of emotional intelligence, sometimes summarized as EQ, in selecting the best candidates to lead or support change. And we'll finish off with some advice on how you can apply these principles in everyday practice. Over the past 20 years, we've spent an enormous amount of time trying to understand what stands in the way of improvement, because we know that it can be frustrating and exhausting for people in your capacity to try to move ahead multiple initiatives across your organization. So we spend time trying to understand what those obstacles are, how well the industry is doing in overcoming them, and what solutions might make that job easier. You'll find, again, many resources on this topic at creato.com. One study in particular that we launched at the beginning of last year is shown here as a thumbnail. You can download that as well in the form of a white paper. Let's start with the 3 secrets to sustainable improvement capability. It starts with commitment to a method. You know, there are many methods out there in contemporary literature that can help you solve problems. There's trial and error, which is a method for sure, but maybe not the best method if patient safety is at stake. Then there are methods like Lean, Six Sigma, PDCA, and others that no doubt you've heard of. Commitment to a method is the first step, but it's commitment to getting better at it every day that separates the winners from losers in the studies that we've conducted. Commitment looks like something very specific. It's not simply sending some people to training. It's not bringing in a consultant. It's a commitment to driving these methods deep into the organization, practicing them, and learning from them as you try to undertake various improvement initiatives. As you're attempting those improvement initiatives, emotionally intelligent leadership is critical. Developing leaders to understand how to give their subordinates what they need in order to get on board with change. One of the things we understand is that staff needs, every member of staff needs something different from their leaders. Some will need compassion, some will need encouragement, others will need data. It all comes down to being emotionally intelligent and detecting those signals that are being transmitted by staff so that you can be supportive, give them the information, address their concerns, and get them on board. This is a program that we offer across the country through the American College of Healthcare Executives, but more often we bring these programs out to you, working with your staff and understanding how to create a more harmonious work environment. The final in the 3 secrets is some form of technical infrastructure, some form of infrastructure that serves as the glue that holds these programs together. PPM stands for Project Portfolio Management. This is the discipline and this is the application that is sought out by organizations that are trying to bring order to chaos. The Compass Quality Management System is our solution. We'll talk more about that a little later on. Was recognized by G2 Crowd as a high performer for project management and enterprise PMO management. So taken together, these are the three requirements for sustainable improvement capability, PPM infrastructure being one of the more important ones so that you can create a supportive environment for your staff so they're given the tools and support necessary not only to initiate project work, but to sustain the good changes that they have made. When we work with organizations, we stitch these resources together and deploy them in a very disciplined fashion. We start with the leadership and helping them to practice more emotionally intelligent leadership with their staff. We then undertake the process of selecting the very best candidates to put into our training programs. We train both on-site and online, launching those projects within Compass, so we're getting that early adoption of technology. When we finished our first round of projects, we like to make a big deal about it. We graduate the candidates and then we return to the pipeline for another round of activities. Our approach has been proven quite effective in looking over 10 organizations that we had worked with over the previous 10 years and 150 different projects. We validated a return on investment of 7-to-1. Over the last several deployments that we've evaluated, we actually achieved a return on investment of 6-to-1 in the very first year. So returning to the question, what stands in the way of improvement? One might think that commitment to a method would be enough to moving down that path of producing good results for the organization. And we are here to sort of challenge that conventional wisdom that a reliable method may not be enough to achieve traction for your efforts, because if all you have done is selected a method, for example, if all you have done is to suggest, we're going to send some people to training or we're going to bring in a lean consultant, then the only question you've really answered is how. How are we going to improve? Well, we're going to adopt these tools, or, well, we're going to bring in this consultant or this training. And clearly people have many, many more questions than simply how are you going to improve? What are you going to improve is going to be the next question. Where are the improvement resources going to be housed? When is this initiative going to be undertaken? And the all too familiar why. Why do we need to do this right now? Now is not a good time. And if you have heard these expressions in your organization, then you are front and center with the very natural resistance that people are going to feel when they're faced with the prospect of change. And you may have heard others that make your blood boil, and it can be very frustrating when your well-intentioned efforts find that they have no legs because the individuals in the organization are not going to support you. GE, General Electric, had done some interesting research some time ago to try to understand why they were not getting traction for some of their changes. And they found that 100% of the changes that they evaluated as successful had a good underlying fundamental technical approach to them, but also 98% of the failures also had a fundamentally good technical solution or approach. Really begs the question, what is the differentiating factor between success and failure? GE spent some time studying this and came to the conclusion that it doesn't matter the quality of your solution or the rigor or level of sophistication in your approach to solutions. If the organization does not accept that this is the right approach for right now, then the effectiveness of your approach is going to be mitigated. This gave rise to a very notorious formula out in industry today, Q times A equals E, suggesting that staff are as concerned about the journey as they are about the destination. It really calls to question the merits of training in a methodology. When you walk away, you will likely find that people are not necessarily going to be adopting or embracing or practicing the new methodology if they did not concur with the merits of it in the first place. What we've come to learn for this is that not everyone is suited for Lean or Six Sigma work, And we came about this recognition not just from the GE research alone, but from our own recognition that we would start deployment initiatives, Lean or Six Sigma training initiatives after the CEO got in front of the organization and made the proclamation they were going in this direction. And many well-intentioned, enthusiastic people emerged and were very anxious to get trained. And we were only to find that 6 months later, we were hearing things like, gee, I didn't think it was going to take this long, or I didn't think it was going to be this hard. And it's not like we weren't crystal clear from the beginning. It was clear to us that we didn't have the right people. We've also learned that it's not just important to do things right, it's important to do the right things. Lean, Six Sigma, other improvement methods are great for doing things right, but none of them will inform you on how to do the right things in the first place. Another observation we made as organizations were very quick to embrace Six Sigma as the potential solution to all their problems was that in the quest for quick wins, organizations ultimately were sponsoring projects of marginal impact. You know, the quick win is attractive, it's quick, it's a win, it's all very intuitive that quick wins would allow you to get early traction for your efforts, but what we found as a consequence was that projects were not aligned with institutional priorities. We weren't moving the needle, we weren't moving the big dots. The organizations would get exhausted after a year or more of trying, and after completing a few projects, the pipeline would not be replenished and the reproducibility would end at that point. And guess what happens? The organization would blame the method when it was actually the execution that was flawed. So doing the right things involves involving the right people, creating the right environment, embracing the right method for the specific right problem, and of course, launching the right projects. Many more programs on this particular topic are available at the Creato Connection. We're just going to tackle the first couple bullets here in today's program. I'd like to start by calling attention to an approach that was favored by many executives as it was introduced to them by management consultants and in the literature, and is something known as the burning platform approach to change management. Perhaps you have been subjected to this particular approach. It takes the form of the CEO getting in front of his or her organization, perhaps drawing attention to some existential threat or real competitive threat in the marketplace, evoking the phrases that if we do not understand how to deal with this competitive threat, we may not be here next year. Maybe they use those 4 magic words that they learn in business school, I need your help. But there are many problems with this approach. First of all, most organizations find that the people are working very hard and they don't have anything more to give back to their leadership. They're already working as hard as they can. And secondly, when the CEO says we may not be here next year, what he or she is really saying is that I may not be here next year. And what is career limiting for the CEO is generally not career limiting for the rest of the people in the organization. In fact, there's a reason why Americans have been known to be irrationally exuberant. We are known for our capacity to feel confident that we will survive and endure the change ahead of us. Many individuals will simply choose to put their head down, realizing that if I do so, he will go away or she will go away, but I'll be just fine. What this comes down to is that there is really no one size fits all to change management. In fact, people will need something different from their leaders, no matter who they are. Every individual needs something different. And the wise leader will understand that and recognize that fear, intimidation, and threats will only get them so far. In fact, one of the things we know is that organizational change is an emotional event. Once we begin to recognize that, we can begin to deal with the emotions of individuals in our organization and begin to understand how to give those individuals what they need to get on board. In fact, in an oversimplification of this social science, we know that there are basically 6 forms of response to change, and you can see them expressed on the face of our model here. And here's the bad news for leaders, and that is that 4 out of 6 of these, fully 2/3 of these, are going to be a challenge for you. Only involvement and commitment are going to make your job easier in recruiting support for your change management initiatives. What we understand is that a better way forward is emotionally intelligent leadership, often summarized as EI or EQ. Emotionally intelligent leaders develop and create resonance and trust among their followers. They empathize with individuals in their orbit, but more than anything else, the key takeaway is that emotionally intelligent leaders understand how to give their staff what they need. And I'm not talking about a new software application. I'm not talking about approving a piece of capital equipment or a new hire. We're talking about, obviously, their emotional needs. Daniel Goleman, who is often considered the sort of the grandfather of the emotional intelligence movement, breaks it down into 4 iterative steps, beginning with personal competencies, including self-awareness, understanding yourself, your impact on other people, then self-management of those emotions at the extremes so that your behavior is not creating a situation in which people feel off balance around you. Then moving into social competencies, understanding how other people are hardwired and how you can practice more effective relationship management so you're having more productive relationships with people in your orbit. The good news that all of these are learned abilities. They are not talents that you are born with. Due to the benefit of something known as neuroplasticity, we can commit to become more emotionally intelligent every day. An emotionally intelligent leader can detect a resistor versus a supporter. Here again, a gross oversimplification of a fairly complex area of social science breaks the general population down into 4 quadrants. In the upper right-hand corner, we have individuals that are likely to initiate change. Bottom right-hand corner, many that are willing to support change. But on the far left side, a very large, in fact, majority of the population in many organizations are going to resist any initial efforts at change. And we'll break this down a little further as we go through the remaining material. And so what we often have is a situation literally where it is like ships passing. You have often the leadership gravitating to the right-hand side, mobilizing around a vision and desire for change, with the folks on the right-hand side saying things either publicly or to themselves over my dead body. Your bottom line is not my problem. I did not come into this organization with the intent of supporting every one of these changes. And every one of these red dots represents an individual, a real individual, by the way, from a real case study that we did, that is initially resisting the vision of management for a very specific reason. In the upper left-hand corner, the change resistors are likely to be looking for data and evidence. In the bottom left-hand corner, the individuals represented there are more concerned with just the nature of change itself and the uncertainty around it. And again, this is from a real case study that we conducted on behalf of a CEO that couldn't understand until he saw this slide why he was encountering so much resistance to his initiative to implement a Lean and Six Sigma improvement program in his organization. Sometimes we borrow from some of our favorite animals to bring a little more texture and context to an understanding of this area of social science. And so we have the hawks in the upper left-hand corner, naturally extroverted and task-oriented with an urgency for change. These are folks that are very driven. They don't want to be micromanaged. They're looking for the autonomy to make their organization and employer proud. In the lower right-hand corner, we have the peacocks, naturally extroverted and people-oriented, often the life of the party. Their greatest fear is social rejection, and so they want to be involved in change. They want to be given a role, and often they can be your greatest cheerleaders. In the upper left-hand corner, we have the owls, naturally introverted and task-oriented. Their greatest fear is getting it wrong. They're most likely going to need data, other forms of evidence in order to get on board. They can't be rushed into a decision. And those are individuals that can become very supportive once they've been given the evidence that they need to feel confident that the change is the right change for right now. Finally, in the lower left-hand corner, the majority of individuals, a much higher percentage in some environments, such as in hospitals, are the doves. They are naturally introverted and people-oriented, and their greatest fear is change itself, the uncertainty associated with change, the impact that change can have on their fellow employees, if in healthcare on the patient population, or if in other industries, the impact on the customers. And so once we begin to understand how people are naturally hardwired and their fears and their anxieties, we can begin as emotionally intelligent leaders to begin to give them what they need. And as a proof of concept, sometimes in the classroom environment, we work through some of these scenarios here to understand how we might approach different situations differently, depending upon the behavior style of the individual that we happen to be in front of at that particular time. If we were dealing with a hawk and we wanted to delegate responsibility to them for an improvement project, we want to give that individual clear outcomes. We don't want to prescribe to them how we want the work to be done. We want to give them a minimal amount of restrictions. Obviously, don't do anything illegal, but produce this result. And then we want to check in with them from time to time so we can practice servant leadership, breaking down any obstacles or any frustrations, but giving that hawk fairly wide latitude to get the work done. If we were approaching an owl and we needed them to support a quick shift in how we were approaching the marketplace, we know the owl is going to need data, but rather than prescribing what the owl needs, we would be better served to simply approach them and say, you know, what do you need to feel comfortable with this approach that we're taking? We know that the answer is going to be data, but giving that owl the opportunity to express their concerns gives us even more information than we would otherwise have. So, you know, what do you need from me is a great way to start that conversation. If we're speaking to a dove that we need to have participate in a change management initiative, we know that the dove's concern is going to be the uncertainty. We might want to assure the dove that the direction in which we're moving is going to be good for the customers, good for the employees, good for the patients, explain to them why, explain to them how. But then we want to assure the dove that at the slightest sign of risk, at the slightest sign of danger, we can roll back to a safe place. We want to emphasize that we've done our research, that we understand what that protocol looks like, that falling back to a safe place is something that we would not hesitate to do at the slightest sign of risk. Finally, the peacock that we need to approach for an improvement for improvement in their own performance. This is a real tough one because we know that peacocks are very sensitive individuals. We don't want to offend that person. We don't want to be too direct in criticizing them. So in coaching them for improved performance, we might say, you know, John, I want you to try something a little different next week. You know, in the meetings, I want you to try not to hijack the meeting right away. Let other people talk. Give them an opportunity to express their views. You might find that they have valuable contributions to make. And then let's visit this next week and see how that goes. I'm just giving you one simple example. Obviously, the coaching is going to be dependent upon your own frustrations and working with that individual, but the key is to ask them to try something different. They won't find that nearly as threatening. And when you revisit with them, you know, perhaps a week later, you're likely to find that there was changes in the right direction. We could spend days on this. These are just some simple examples as a proof of concept that emotionally intelligent leaders will take a different approach to individuals depending on their behavior style. One of the things that we know is that emotional intelligence extends to the individuals that we involve in improvement initiatives in the first place. We know now that not everyone is suited to improvement initiatives. I drew reference earlier in the program that we found, you know, people that were enthusiastic, people that were available to be involved. It's great, but that's not the best criteria. The funniest guy in the room is not the best criteria. And we don't do anybody any favors by bringing them into an improvement initiative if we know that they're going to struggle to contribute, if we expect that they're not going to complete the program. We are not doing them any favors. We're not doing the organization any favors. If we can pick the right people in advance, that is the better path to take. Our candidate assessment program predicts in advance if candidates will succeed or struggle in learning and applying the Lean and Six Sigma methodologies. I'll go through that in just a moment, but I want to point out, again, as a proof of concept, we actually use different tools depending on whether we are planning to put individuals into a Lean program versus a Six Sigma program, because they are very different methodologies. Before we get further into that, just as a fun little tangent, I'd like to share with you what low self-awareness looks like in a clip from a Seinfeld episode. And when you come across this type of a personality, it's kind of getting pretty clear signals up front that they're not the best candidate for training. I'll be back in just a moment after the clip.
Is this the suicide talk or the nickname talk?
The nickname. George, what is that? It's nothing. It's got no snap, no zip. I need a nickname that makes people light up.
You mean like Liza?
I was thinking T-Bone.
But there's no T in your name. What about G-Bone?
There's no G-Bone.
There's a G-Spot.
That's a myth.
T-Bone, the ladies are gonna love you.
Mary, I will have a chef's salad.
Turkey sandwich.
T-bone steak.
For lunch?
Well, I am just a T-bone kind of guy. Love that T-bone. In fact, you might as well call me.
That sounds good. I'll have one too.
Watkins, you having a T-bone?
I love them.
Well, then we should call you T-bone.
No, we shouldn't.
T-bone!
T-bone, 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 T-bone.
No T-Bone?
Hey, it's not T-Bone!
No, there's no T-Bone.
Oh, I know T-Bone!
Why no T-Bone?
Because Neil Watkins from accounting is T-bone!
I'm back. Hey, you want to play cards over the phone?
It's T-bone. The thing is, I'm supposed to be T-bone.
You're not a T-bone. You're a perfect George.
What? Now you listen to me.
Boy, look at George. He's giving it the T-bone. He's jumping up and down like some kind of monkey. Hey, what was the name of that monkey that could read sign language?
All right, you can have T-bone. Stop crying.
Not crying. And I shouldn't have said that about your wife. Please accept my apologies. Okay, everybody, I have an announcement to make. From now on, I will be known as
Coco the monkey.
what?
So how's it going to work? You get tired of it?
Oh, yeah.
So what does candidate selection actually look like? Candidate selection for us has become the secret sauce in effective deployments. What do I mean by that? I mean that doing this up front before you're starting a change management initiative can have a huge impact on the success of that initiative. You're not going to have any failures. You're not going to have any delays because you're getting the right people involved in your Lean program, in your Six Sigma program, in whatever program you are attempting to launch, because you're going to get the right people on the bus from the very start. This was a product that we developed after 12 years of study and revalidated from time to time against our established baseline of candidates that we have already validated as being a good fit for Lean or Six Sigma or other deployments. We've adapted a product called DISC. Perhaps you have heard of it. It's the most highly validated psychometric assessment. We have adapted it for our purposes in identifying individuals that are the best candidates for Lean training or Six Sigma training. We ask these individuals to give the job a voice and to describe as best they can the job requirements and demands, and then we compare those individuals against a baseline that we now have evolved over more than 10 years. In going through this process, we encourage organizations to cast a very wide net. Let's look at many individuals that we feel might be good candidates. Let's invite senior management to nominate individuals. Maybe it's not going to be individuals that are middle management. Maybe it's that diamond in the rough that happens to have just come into the organization in the past year or so. It really doesn't matter to us the tenure of the individual. Much more important to get the right individual. And we have those individuals participate in an assessment. We want to emphasize the assessment is not a test. There's no right or wrong answers. In our particular assessment, we're evaluating individuals on 18 different behaviors and values. As I mentioned earlier, we have separate instruments for Lean versus Six Sigma. And it's going to be criteria that is going to be fairly intuitive to you and obvious, although it gets much deeper than this. We're looking for individuals that are kind of that perfect mix of a hawk and a peacock, individuals that have a sense of urgency, but that relate well to other people in their orbit. They're able to embrace a challenge without necessarily seeing the end. We know they're going to persevere through that challenge and that they're going to adhere to the method and not jump to conclusions. They should be comfortable in dealing with data. They should have some sense of confidence that they can conduct analytical activities. They should be organized. They should be disciplined. And this concept of having utilitarian focus simply means they're not going to get caught up in the drama, the emotions, the gossip. They're going to be very focused. They're going to have an endpoint in mind without really knowing what the solution is going to look like when they get there. These are individuals that are going to be able to step back in the presence of data, not draw conclusions, but have the courage to say nothing more than, that's interesting, but we're not done yet. Once we've found those individuals, we invite them to go into our program. We don't want to demoralize the individuals that were not selected, so we will typically put the individuals not selected in our classroom into project teams so that they can still contribute. We will give the faculty of our classroom environment copies of the results so that those individuals that are coaching and mentoring our candidates will have a really good understanding from the very beginning some of the gaps and some of the needs that those individuals will have, so that we're doing our very best to leverage the information that we have available to us and creating a good classroom environment for every single individual. This has been an enormously successful approach, as I mentioned, because we're getting the right people on the bus from the very beginning. We know that the projects will be finished. And I'd like to share a case study with one of our clients in the New York metropolitan area, HRH Care, where we have conducted many rounds of candidate assessment. In the very first round of candidate assessment, we assessed about 50 people for a classroom of about 25. The client indicated to us that they wanted us to train all 50 individuals, irrespective of their results on the candidate assessment program. And so when we first approached this, obviously we took the top 25 students and ran them through our program, as well as 25 projects, and the other 25 individuals were put on project teams. These were 25 that were frankly rejected from our process. We would not have recommended to train them under any circumstances, but the client was insistent that everybody have that opportunity when we first started doing business together. Well, let me tell you, at the end of the first round of training, upon observing the performance of the individuals that were not in the classroom but put on the teams, the client indicated to us that they did not want us to train those individuals, that they wanted us to start with 25 net new people because they could see the lack of commitment, the lack of understanding, and did not have the confidence that if we had returned to the second set of 25 candidates, that they would have had a good experience with the program. I think that's pretty clear evidence that this product works, and it certainly shows in the results and multiple completed projects that we can point to now from this particular client. As we wrap up today's program, there are lots of fun ways that we can bring this experience to our clients. Sometimes we show this picture of Anya, Tanya, Manya, and Anya and invite the audience to determine which is the hawk. versus which is the dove. Most people are pretty quick to point out that Tanya, the one with the computer on her lap, is likely our hawk. She's got that computer. She's not letting anybody else have it. Anya to the far left with that skeptical look on her face is probably our owl. Anya is our peacock. She's so thrilled to be there. And Manya is our dove because she's just happy in general and has that complacent look on her face. So that's just a fun exercise that we often do, but it also allows us to return to this concept of diversity and to call to question, why is diversity a good thing in an organization and on a project team? And frankly, it's because while the path of least resistance might be to pick people around you that are just like you, you're doing nothing more than reinforcing the blind spots that were there in the first place. If you are a hawk, an individual who has the sense of urgency to damn the torpedoes full speed ahead, sometimes you need an owl around you to hold you back and to remind you what you're missing. Another way that you can arrive at a proof of concept is simply to reflect on this particular photo or some of the other slides in this deck and ask yourself, who in your orbit is completely explained in this phenomenon? Who is your Anya? Who is your Tanya? And begin to understand and appreciate that you can have more effective relationships with those individuals by taking some of the approaches pointed out in this program. And again, as is inherent in the title of our program, not all of them are going to be the right people on your bus for the particular initiative that you have in mind. When we do programs like this around the country in the classroom and we ask people, what would you like to get out of today's program? Oftentimes what we hear from the audience is, if I could just take back one thing that I could use from today's program. Well, how about 6 or 7 things from today's webinar? We discussed the 3 critical requirements for sustainable improvement capability and summarized that the effectiveness of any initiative is going to be a function not only of the quality of your approach, but the acceptance that the people in your organization have accepted that this is the right approach for right now. There is no one size fits all for change management, and in fact, you should stop practicing the golden rule. Don't treat people the way you wish to be treated. Treat people the way they wish to be treated. Look to behavior styles to reveal your best candidates for Leaner Six Sigma training, because it is not enthusiasm or availability that are the best criteria. And across the teams that you build, seek to achieve a level of diversity of behavior, because behavior style diversity is actually a good thing. It's not about the people anyway, it's about the process. And sometimes we have to repeat that final statement 5, 6, or 7 times before people realize, we don't think that people wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to have a variation of 20 minutes. We think that people wake up in the morning and want to do the very best work that they can do. It's the process that works against them. And sometimes we have to remind them many, many times that we're focused on the process, not so much the people, in order to get them to let go of their anxieties and to get on board with our change management initiatives. I hope as a result of today, you'll get to know us better and our 3-legged stool for sustainable improvement capability. We have 3 practice areas. Each of those 3 practice areas speak to the 3 requirements for sustainable improvement capability. And we've kept our single commercial for the end of today's program. We're going to roll right into a very quick demonstration of the Compass Quality Management System. I hope you'll stick around for that. It's only about 4 or 5 minutes long. I want to thank you for your attention today. Thank you for joining us. I hope to see you again on another program from the Creato Connection. Bye for now.
Welcome to this brief demonstration of the award-winning Compass Quality Management System. Compass will literally put improvement on autopilot in your organization, completing more projects faster, and projects with greater returns. Your team will be given the tools, support, and direction necessary to drive your efforts at operational excellence and business transformation. In other words, no matter how you look at it, Compass pays for itself. No other comparable application contains as many features or as much value for the dollar. Let me show you some of the features of Compass that will support breakthrough improvement in your organization. Users can quickly add an idea to Compass by indicating the anticipated value to your organization and the specific business case. Our impact risk matrix will frame the business opportunity with little effort, while the system prioritizes the idea for comparison to others. From the very first screen, Compass improves employee engagement while creating a robust pipeline of opportunities. And by the way, most of the fields you see here are actually customizable. Leverage employee feedback in Compass by comparing perception to reality for improvement opportunities. Users can comment and rate ideas, while management compares workforce support to objective criteria. Your management and quality team can review the merits of each idea and resource those with greatest potential. Dynamic sorting helps you evaluate the range of opportunities more effectively than a static spreadsheet. In other words, Compass helps you to not only do things right, but to do the right things. It's no wonder Compass has been recognized as the #1 idea management system compared to over 75 other applications on G2Crowd.com. Management can send feedback to users from within Compass. Show your staff that you appreciate their initiative. Ask others for the information you need. You'll be promoting collaboration and establishing accountabilities up front while communicating your support. Once an idea is approved, Compass will help drive your project. This becomes the handoff within Compass from management to staff. Compass makes it easy to do the right thing by guiding the user through project work, providing tools and support, and a place for documentation. Need a little direction before performing a value stream analysis? Tell Compass to get me the tool, or even get me the training. Jump into the Lean online training available also from ASQ, now incorporated within Compass. This is a highly evolved program including professional audio, exercises, learning games, and case studies. At any time, send an updated A3 report to your team and stakeholders, and Compass will not only create the report, it will drop it into an email for you. Compass is compatible with PDCA, Lean, Six Sigma, ISO 9001, and any improvement method you use in your organization. Compass is a high performer for enterprise project management on G2 Crowd, and it's one of this year's top quality management systems according to CIO Review. Compass includes the entire body of knowledge for Lean to support staff new to improvement work, and it even integrates readily with SharePoint for your own intranet, enabling you to create a turnkey collaborative environment. Compass offers a highly flexible user-driven reporting portal. You can view reports in an A3 format or reports with a global view. Reports offer the ability to monitor all activity, progress against goals, and return on investment. Compass puts improvements on autopilot by automatically advising staff if their projects are ahead, behind, or missing data. Finally, we can't talk about Compass without showcasing our robust tools. Compass will literally interview each user and build a tool based on your specific needs, allowing you to create everything from a value stream analysis, Gantt or control chart, to computerized simulation. Compass can replace annual spending on dozens of disparate applications in many organizations. Bring order to chaos as Compass guides your team through the completion of projects, and management achieves true line of sight into all improvement activity in the organization. Finish more improvement projects, finish projects faster, and finish projects with stronger results. All within the guidance of your Compass. Compass.